Hi, everyone. Welcome to The New Normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Light Queen Lisa. Today we have Dr. Reg McDaniel from the New Eden product that I have been using, and I want to share with you guys. So he's going to do a presentation for you guys, and then I've got him watching in the background. So he's watching the live chat, and I'm going to be writing down any questions that you guys have. And we're going to bring him on and go through those questions live. So enjoy the presentation. We'll be right back right after this.
I fear sometimes it's kind of over the top because I do not represent myself as some expert. And in fact, what you experienced during the pandemic from so-called experts, that their information has been politicized, and when I was young, science was considered the search for truth, regardless of whether it was to the left, right, in the middle, and certainly not to be in harmony with politics. I have given this presentation of what I've been doing the last 36 years for over 30 years, and I've tried to simplify scientific material and medical material that's heavily expressed in terms from Greek and Latin language. I'm sure that in your everyday work, you don't talk about megaloblastic anemia or megakaryocytes, which just mean great big cells, and that's from the Greek, and with the words like saccharides, kind of smooth that comes out of your mouth and has a zing to it, are Latin terms like cynic, saccharides, and senators. This presentation, I hope to make kind of like fireside chat, and I want to relate it to something other than science, something that people already know something about. And the Hebrew scriptures from the King James Version, written in 1611, the ancient Hebrew scriptures, as well as the modern New Testament, and from the birth of the carpenter in Galilee, that it was called by some the Messiah, but by everyone as Jesus, was written at a time when virtually no one was educated, and they tried to put it in a language that people could understand about the provisions in the universe for all people. And from the Old Testament in the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, the oldest part, about 5,000 years ago, in Genesis 1:29 says, "Behold, I've given you every herb and seed bearing and tree, for you shall be meat," King James Version. I have given this lecture to more vegetarians and vegans, many others, and that term meat kind of hangs in their throat. So I've gone to academic rabbis, that I'm just a routine rabbi, but those that study the original manuscripts, and asked, is that what the original Hebrew said? And they kind of smile and said, well, they were trying to get across in a poetic manner that these plants were very important. And I said, well, would nutrition or food be good to put in there? And they said, no, that's not quite accurate. They said sustenance, and that's more of all-encompassing term about what nutrition can do for the human body. Then, echoing from that, in 3 John, 2nd verse, it starts out with, "Brethren, I pray that you will prosper in good health as your soul prospers." And we're going to focus on the power of nutrition in this effort on my part, because I don't want to try to hammer you with Latin and Greek terms that are not in everyday language. Now, I'm trying to advance the slide, and I don't know why it's not advancing. Okay. Now, as I pointed out, we're trying to make the point that people don't want to be a biochemist or an electrobiologist, a physician or a geneticist or some PhD with biology or health specialist. And I want you to retain information that relates to something you believe. And if you can share this story of nutrition, there are 3 important things that you can share with people: improved health, improved wealth, and a sense of personal worthiness. I don't think there's any doubt that everyone wants to have optimal health, but if you've got a deviation from health, you're having to go to a doctor on a regular basis as an adult or child. This can keep you just totally financially wiped out. So with nutrition, which is incredibly safe, even proven in FDA toxicity studies, and lo and behold, we hope you never have to go to the hospital. It can spend very many days there. It can take the rest of the career, pay that bill, and lo and behold, never have to get to ICU because the expenses there can wipe out a lifetime of savings. So health and wealth are pretty important. But the sense of worthiness is what you can do to help someone that nothing has worked in terms of conventional medical management, and that this nutrition works with engineering and design of life that is coded in the genes that are in your cells that control cellular synthesis. And it is safe, it's effective, and you can do things with people if they know this information, which I'm trying to share with you, that they will, with tears in their eyes, express thank you and gratitude. I am providing slides because science has been able to show that this biocomputer that's between our ears that we call brain, and its function is our mind, that about 90% of the activity of the neurons is dedicated to information that comes through your eyes, and a significant amount with that in your ears. But having something visual to see is very important to try to share the story. For individuals, just to tell people that modern science supports the power of nutrition is somewhat of a weak message. And as I had previously stated, during the viral pandemic, what has happened to science is unfortunate. But it's essential to know and believe that the power of nutrition in support of the engineering design of life that is coded in the DNA of our genes that controls cellular synthesis. Cellular synthesis is to mix amino acids, connect them to fatty acids and to carbohydrates, sugar units, vitamins, minerals, and molecules provided in the plants by the organizing, designing, and organizing power in the universe. Now we'll go to the next slide. Now, this is the composition of matter slide, and this is all the atomic elements that have been found on Earth and even in space. The simplest of the elements is hydrogen, which is one electron. That's why it has a value of 1. And each one of these little squares is an expression of energy, which has a unique frequency for each of these elements. But the common, though there is no life properties whatsoever in these approximately 100 different elements, the greatest work of art that has ever been, and I would like to relate this to something you know about. I have in my hand an artist's palette, and in addition, it has 3 primary colors on it: blue, yellow, and red. And whether you're an artist that paints by the numbers or Leonardo da Vinci, you use these to create an artist's composition. What I'm showing you in this element of the elements is the greatest palette that the creating power of the universe is used to make everything in space, our Earth, our moon, our sun, and then from this, certain molecules are used to create life in the plants and life in the animals, which is very similar to the biochemistry and life that is in a human being. Now, I'd like for you to think now that every cell in the body, and that's to the left here, right here, and have different shapes. Think of it as, when they're first made, as a tiny ultra factory. And depending on the 30,000 genes that we are told are in the human body, depending on which gene is activated, there's an assembly line, every cell in the body, that is in 3 steps. You don't have to remember it, but it's ribosome, endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus, which the nutrient molecules are hooked together to make the bioactive compounds that make up everything that's a structure and the function of all the cells in the human body. And the center is some biochemistry, and there's a story behind this we won't get too much into, but in 1985, I was asked by a company near my office at Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center to be a medical consultant. And a company about 10 miles from here had 12 products made from the leaf gel of the aloe vera plant. And at the height of the anxiety over the AIDS epidemic, this little company had a bottle of aloe vera leaf gel beverage called Carolo. And from 7 different states, individuals sent faxes. There weren't any emails in this time, and also short notices in the mail that basically told the company I was on my deathbed waiting to die of this disease of unknown cause with no treatment. And I drank your aloe vera leaf gel, and now I'm back at work and in school without symptoms. I thought you'd want to know. Well, that's why the individual came to me in my office at Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center and had formed a new company called Carrington Laboratories, which no longer exists. And the goal for this was they had raised $20 million to make a new FDA-approved drug from the active ingredient, at that point unknown, that was an aloe vera leaf gel. And in the center very specialized chemists found out that the active molecule in aloe vera was acetylated mannose, which is called ace-mannan, and that in the second step of cellular synthesis, 9 molecules of this substance from aloe vera leaf gel in 3 chains form a domain on the membrane of all the cells in the body for cell-to-cell communication. This is why this was such a powerful substance, and efforts were being made to develop it into a new drug, but the company was thrown out of the new drug approval process by the FDA for 2 reasons. One, no toxicity whatsoever could be found for this substance. Chronically huge amounts in various animal species and also in human beings. And then the second reason was every deviation from normal, whether it was physical, mental, or emotional, improved to some degree from minimal to virtually 100% if this was taken. These 2 principles, no toxicity and everything in the human body's activity that we know as life improving, is pharmaceutical and medical heresy. So we were thrown out, but we had 12 different institutions working on contract with that $20 million for research and had all this data about the power of what this molecule in the aloe plant could do. Well, in 1994, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act was passed, and we realized that what we had was an ingredient for nutrition, not a drug. Drugs or pharmaceuticals interfere with the engineering and design of life that is coded into the genes, whereas nutrition or dietary supplement molecules are utilized or catalyzed or support the engineering and design of life. And that's because we had no toxicity. It was food, special food, no longer common in the modern food chain. And it was used to make a domain on the surface of the cells that was for harmony and instructions between the millions of, or trillions of cells, many millions that make up the body. They all got to have to work together in harmony. This is a model of a single cell, an animal cell, and I want to point out that this blue area here is the nucleus of the cell where all the gene or DNA material is stored. It's like the reference library. DNA never goes out of the nucleus, and you've heard of RNA. Well, a copy is made of the DNA that can leave the domain of the nucleus to go to the assembly line that's in the body, and we have in here the small as I said, assembly line, these particles you can see on an electron microscope. And there's also little structures called mitochondria that develop the energy primarily from sugars and some fats to make ATP to run the energy for everything that's going on in this cell. Now, this is an example of what's in the nucleus of each cell, and this is a blueprint of life. And you can't see the chromosomes or the genes unless you put a special stain. And to the right, you have a single white cell that has been in culture overnight, and special fluorescent dyes have been put in it that under UV microscope makes the genetic material glow. You take a photograph of this squash trap of the center of one cell, and you take the longest chromosomes and down to the shortest, and this is called a karyotype, but this is the blueprints of life, that all the information is in here for instructions for cellular synthesis, depending on which gene here is activated, to instruct the cell how to combine it to make all the compounds that operate the biochemistry and physiology of life. What I'm telling you is why the scriptures are so powerful, and that one of the biggest challenges to human beings is, how did all of this information and technology and design come into existence? This is a scientific representation of what's in those chromosomes. And you have dark blue band. You've heard of the helix, of how the DNA is organized. Well, there's three different ways of trying to get across how this little, essentially biocomputer that runs the cell is organized. One band is the information genetically, and they got the molecules here, and again, more like the molecules are stated at the maternal and the paternal genetic information. And then this gold in here, or this is the actual nucleic acids, are the programs to give you the information of how the nutrient molecules are hooked together to make bioactive compounds to run life. Before we leave this, I showed you that assembly line and how this is in the thing. And if you will think of each cell as a tiny, tiny factory run by a biocomputer, which you're seeing right here, the DNA, and this acetylated mannose for ACE mannan gives you the property for cell-to-cell instructions for harmony, like cloud computing for this little biocomputer for all these cells working together. This is why the scriptures are so powerful. Now, all of this came from the creative, designing, organizing power of the universe. And this has been one of the biggest challenges to the human condition. It's translated in many terms in multiple systems of faith. The Christians use the word God. The Jews use a number of terms, but Yahweh is the general term for this creative, designing, organizing power in the universe. And what I'm trying to share with you by relating this to, we'll get to it more and more, God's plan, or Yahweh's plan for health and healing. In a secular term, I also use a term that this is personal, preventive, and interventional health management. Now, this power, the Jews call Yahweh, the Islam called Allah, the Christians call God or Lord, the King. There are religions that say it's a creative source, the spirit. That particularly was the American Indian term. And I like the term from ancient Greece that is attributed to Socrates. It says, all of this is due to the prime mover of the universe. And the main thing that I can tell you out of this that I have learned from this experience is that this is not a big man, as the ceiling for the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican was put in the ceiling there by Leonardo da Vinci. This power is undeniable, that is creating, designing, and organizing. But just the nature of it has been one of the biggest challenges of mine. But out of all this is there modern scientific evidence that biblical structure is valid? And I'm hoping that I'm relating this to your knowledge from biblical scripture that I trust that you believe in. And we will proceed to try to relate all of this science to that. Now, I think I told you that the company Carrington Laboratories was started and $20 million was used to multiple academic institutions to do what the FDA required. But we were thrown out, and we had all this science and information about the power of nutrition, and couldn't make it into a drug. But then legislation was passed that was opposed by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, the National Institutes of Health, American Medical Association, especially Big Pharma, and the entire sickness industry. And in this law, there starts out with a preamble, which is a statement of why they had governmental hearings and passed this legislation. It's just a statement of purpose, and it's not the law, but it has a marvelous statement of fact and truth. And I quote it, paraphrasing, first paragraph to the preamble to this legislation, the Doctors and Health and Education Act. It states, science and medicine has proven that optimal nutrition is necessary for good health, to prevent disease, and to restore good health. You could easily say, what more could you want in terms of the importance of nutrition? Well, you could wish that this statement was in the law and not the preamble, because in the law, in the labeling section of the Doctor and Supplement Education Act, it states only an FDA-approved pharmaceutical can claim to treat, cure, ameliorate a disease or syndrome, or improve an abnormal health condition. And this clause is brutally enforced by the Food and Drug Administration. Now, the challenge of the King James translator in 1611 was to put in a small book the Hebrew text and the message of Jesus in lay terms, and trying to get across to an uneducated world population these provisions of this creative power in the universe is like how a father takes care of his family and children, or how a master may take care of his servants, or a benevolent king for his subjects. So those anthropomorphic terms, using father, master, and king, permeate the translation. Pardon me. A German theologian has called this effort the charisma, the essence or the core message that what the creative, organizing, designing power of the universe was put into human forms or words called anthropomorphism, humanizing, and the idea of a big aged man for communication purposes was permeated in the Bible. And this inspired the sealing of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, which is on my wall in the back, this image. And this is marked challenge to what the Jewish males were taught in the yeshiva schools, because they were taught that Yahweh was a spirit or a power beyond human domain, dimensions, or comprehension. This power of nutrition we're talking about is not a new idea. And we're going to put it to the maximum test for validating, extracting a source for scientifically proven guidance. Now, One of the strongest detailed evidence that I have found is in Genesis 17. It says, the Lord spoke to Abraham said on the 8th day, he should circumcise Isaac, himself, servants, and all generations to come as a sign of my covenant with your people. I want you to focus on that 8th day in terms of being a biblical guide. Now, the question is, does modern scientific evidence exist? Was a significant, extremely specific command delivered over 5,000 years ago for the benefit of the Jewish people. Just before World War II, it has been put in various books that at Sloan Kettering, which was established in 1880 to be the new major hospital for North America colonies for incurable diseases. And of course, cancer was at the top of the list. And somebody searching through the files said that no Jewish women had cervical cancer in these files, or it was so low it was not significant. And this was a common problem, cervical cancer in the pre-Papanicolau smears of cervical cell days. It was a significant cancer. In time, they checked the Guy's Hospital in London that was established in 1721 for incurable diseases. And lo and behold, they found out no Jewish women were really of any significance to have cervical cancer. And they also noted that males did not have penile squamous cell carcinoma, because the squamous cell carcinoma is the same type of cancer of cervical cancer that neither Jewish men or women had. The next thing that happened after World War II was viruses were discovered, and it was noted under the microscope, the light microscope, that skin tags or skin papillomas that are common on humans have little inclusions under the microscope that they eventually found out was a human papillovirus, they called it, and that this virus caused skin cell proliferation, these little skin tags. Then the next thing that happened is that in women that were non-Jewish that had cervical cancer, and men that had cervical cancer of the penis, that 99.7% of them had these little inclusions in this cancer. And these were non-Jewish patients. Eventually they found out there were multiple strains of the human papillovirus, or different serotypes that could be detected with different specific antibodies that cause these skin tags and also the cancer. And these little reagent antibodies could detect strains 16, 18, and 31 were strains that were present that caused cervical and penile squamous cell carcinoma in the non-Jewish patients. Then they found out the temperature and the secretions beneath the foreskin of the penis is an ideal temperature and nutrient supply for the proliferation of those strains 16, 18, 31 human papillovirus. This is not the end of the story, of course, because 5,000 years ago, Abraham, it had been Abram, and they changed it to Abraham with this covenant to do the circumcision, was the source of the reason that in the files at the Guy's Hospital in London and Sloan Kettering and also Mount Sinai in New York, that you did not find Jews with this human papillocancer strains of the cervix and penis cancer. But as I said before, note that 8th day. Now, the significance of the 8th day from 5,000 years ago is that when the baby is born, the fetus's immune system is suppressed during pregnancy, and this prevents the baby from making antibodies against the mother's proteins that circulate back and forth in the placenta. But at birth, the child's immune system begins to be activated, and by the 8th day, the protection for surgical removal of the foreskin reaches a level of the immune system being turned on to help prevent infections. So the immune system is host defense against infections, and it's turned off when the baby is born, but it begins to be activated after delivery. And by the 8th day, it is elevated enough to prevent infections. But that's not the end of the story. Newborn's liver is immature when born, and the genes are activated to make synthesis to make different protein compounds, and especially prothrombin, which is essential for blood coagulation, reaches a functional level by the 8th day of life. This provision in physiology reduces the amount of blood loss at circumcision. If you remember, the word was to Abraham, do the circumcision on the 8th day, and by the 8th day, infections are reduced and blood loss is reduced. This is the most specific biblical guidance that science has proven is highly valid. Now, the next question is, might there be other advice, not so thoroughly detailed as what was told to Abraham, that would be a great and significant, reliable source to exert wisdom? And that, if you remember in Genesis, the importance in the diet. Now, previously we told you about Genesis 1:29, and it was sustenance. Now, in Ezekiel 47:12, it talks about the fruit will serve for food, vegetables, and it ends with the leaves of the tree shall be for healing. Other translations say the leaves of the tree shall be for medication or drugs or medicine. From Ezekiel 47:12, this advice 5,000 years ago. Also in Daniel, book of Daniel, first 15 verses, the Jews were in a slavery position under King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon, and he noticed that the young Jews were strong, a lot of agility, and they recovered rapidly from fatigue, and so he won them in his service. And he told them, come in and be in my service and eat at the king's table and have the finest wines and meats from the kingdom. And these young Jews says, oh no, we only want water, fruits, and vegetables. And he says, oh no, we want you to have the best. So they did a little test, and the young Jews proved that their strength and agility and recovery from fatigue was superior from those that were eating at the king's table. So they allowed the Jews to do this. Now, let's turn to modern scientific advances. You can use Google, and if you turn to the Cleveland Clinics and Dr. Dean Arnish and Dr. Esselstein, they have diets at the Cleveland Clinic that will reverse the cause of heart attacks, strokes, and amputation of toes, feet, and legs through nutrition which is primarily fruits, vegetables, and nuts, and they avoid oils and all forms of meat. This diet at the Cleveland Clinic is parallel to what we are told from thousands of years ago in Daniel 1:15. I told you that I got involved with Carrington Laboratories trying to work on the aloe leaf gel. Well, in Numbers 21:12, Moses has sent Joshua and Caleb to the north as scouts because he was having trouble with the tribes there in Sinai, where it was desert. And some of them were saying, at least we had a roof over our head and water and food when we were slaves to Egypt, and having an uproar. And so he sent them to scout out, and they came back and they told Moses a different story. Previous scouts had said that the city walls were higher and wider than any other city walls, that the men were giants, and that we don't want to go up there to the north. And Joshua and Salem, it says there that no, that's not true. So Moses turned to his counselor Balaam, who we're finding the Numbers, goes into a trance, and he says, "Behold, the tents of Jacob. I see the gardens by the river, cypress trees and aloes planted by the Lord." And the rest of the story is they went to the north, and that's the importance. Fact is, this was used in 1985 when I was very cynical about what the goal was for Carrington Laboratories. This Numbers 21:12 was used that is Dr. Bill McAnally, who was chief science officer at Carrington Laboratories, said that, quoted this Numbers 21:12 to me, and says, of all the plants that could have been mentioned, that cypress trees have all types of values and primitive civilization. And then it mentioned aloes, and his words to me were, if you stepped on an aloe leaf in the dark, you would swear you had stepped in a mass of horse snot. That's N-O-T. That's his words. He said, what value could that be? There's got to be something in it that is very important to be mentioned. And of course, I've shared with you the importance that the active ingredient is acetylated mannose or ace-mannan, and that it's used 9 molecules in the endoplasmic reticulum and cellular synthesis to make a domain on the surface of all the cells in the body for coordinating activity and information between all the numerous cells. And it's like cloud computing. Now, in Revelation 22:2, it speaks of the water of the throne of God flows out of the Holy of Holies to the street and flows to the river and the gardens and orchards, and they flourish. So rich is this water that they produce each month, the vegetables and the trees. And it ends with the words, the leaves of the trees shall be for the healing of the nations. And that's an echo 2,000 years ago in the New Testament of what was in the Old Testament. Now, does the Bible have other things could be of significance to know? And I thought of Genesis 8:11. The dove returned to the ark, and Moses took the freshly plucked olive leaf from his peak. So I challenge anyone listening to go to their computer and search on your search engine and take plant material mentioned in the Bible and Google with these words, health benefits of and blank. And I challenge you to put olives, myrrh, juniper, flax, frankincense, just to start, and you'll get a full page of the benefits for health and healing that you will find for each of these plant substances. And this, if you step back from it, it's amazing to realize that in the organizing design power that is present in our universe, that in the plants, what our DNA or our genes call for in cellular synthesis to more properly assemble bioactive molecules, that molecules are present in the plant kingdom to finish off this assembly line in the cellular synthesis. Now, every month, I want you to know that medical and scientific journals publish studies revealing health benefits of ingredients from plants and nature evaluated by the scientific method. This information is censored and suppressed by the Food and Drug Administration and the conventional sickness industry. I told you about the law that is written in the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of '94. The sickness industry cannot compete with these natural ingredients that, for the most part, tend to be safe, effective for the support the engineering design of life, and they're economical beyond any health planner, medical expert, or politician ever dreamed. The opposition to these published articles and to this information is disruptive technology, and it is in deep contrast to the self-interest of those that promote drugs. And I would like to kind of reach out and shake that Paracelsus, that from Switzerland, most noted person in world history, was a individual that's given credit to be father of pharmacology of Western medicine. And he stated, all drugs are poisonous. The benefit depends on the dose. And that's a reality because pharmaceuticals interfere, suppress, replace, increase, or decrease normal physiology and biochemistry to reduce symptoms. And the ideal drug, if you take it, decreases your symptoms of sickness, but if you quit taking the drug, the symptoms come back. Nutrition addresses the cause for the symptoms, and the genes move the biochemistry and physiology to the normal zone where you don't have these symptoms. Now, as I told you to start with, that the language of science is a challenge to human comprehension, and I hope that relating the power of more comprehensive nutrition to the biblical scriptures gets across to you that you have more retention of what I'm sharing with you, which is, as I started out on this journey in 1985, it was the middle of the road science and medicine, but it has turned into a spiritual journey to realize that the organizing, designing, and power of the universe has provided what is needed in cellular synthesis in the plants, or what the genes or DNA calls for in cellular synthesis. Now, if you go to the Webster's Dictionary, you'll find out that faith, in other words, what you believe in, is belief and trust in something in which there is no proof. However, if you go on down, you go to faithfulness, and they echo this, believing in something where there's no truth, but it has multiple definitions. And I like to use the one stating that it's adherence in support of our promise and a determination to adhere to a cause or purpose. And that I hope I have been able to relate nutrition and its provisions in nature by the organizing, designing power of the universe, that there is modern science that validates the biblical scriptures. Why is this important? Well, the World Health Organization is part of the United Nations, and they have recently released that the United States is #1 in healthcare costs, of $10,300 per citizen per year, and it's rapidly rising. However, about every 10 years, using the same criteria and form, they take all the member nations of the United Nations about what is their quality of life and health status of citizens. And the last time this was done, the United States came in number 35th. #1 in cost, number 35th in quality of life and status of citizens. I have come to realize their exploitive agenda of the sickness industry is being enforced on the population. The dietary supplement industry has the ability and means to correct this above travesty, #1 in cost, number 35 in benefits. And that's why what I've been sharing with you is disruptive technology. And Proverbs 18:21 says, the tongue is the power of life and death. And this just emphasizes what one thinks and says has an impact. And don't forget that we communicate with our eyes, our tone of voice, and our body language. And I hope that this information I've been sharing with you, you can lead friends and those you're in contact with to recognize that there is power in more optimal nutrition. Proverbs 18:2 says, a fool delights in hearing his own opinion. You need to share this to help people with their need, not your need. And Corinthians 9:11 says, those that compete in the games strictly train. So do not just try to help others with this, but train and gain more information. Now, again, we started with Abraham, and I hope you want to share this information with others. Acts 20:25 says, it's more blessed to give than to receive, that you will share this information with others. And Proverbs 5:1-3 says, pay attention to wisdom, listen to the words, insight, the lips may preserve knowledge. I hope that you can share this to add value to the life of other people you meet and help them, because what you have to offer is health, wealth, and personally experienced worthiness. I hope that you'll have a spirit of giving, gratefulness, and generosity, and that I have improved your knowledge and belief based on scientific evidence that there is valid biblical information. I have written a book about the first 10 years of this research. It's called The Gift of Primal Provision. Mm-hmm. And you can find a copy on the web at www.wellnessquest.org. If you have any questions, my personal email is capital R McDaniel, just like Daniel in the lion's den, at wellnessquest.org. If you contact me, I'll send you a copy of the published Awakening of Alzheimer's Patients in a clinical study conducted at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, where memory and cognition improved 69% of the patients that were given the latest formulation built around the active ingredient, the aloe plant, ismene. I hope that I have been able to communicate with you in a manner that you can feel confident in terms of what this can do for your own health and your family, and that you will want to share this with others because it is safe, effective, and economical beyond anything you might have ever contacted before.
Well, it definitely has. Thank you, Dr. McDaniel, so much for recording that for us, so we could share that. I will be sharing more of that with other people now that I've got that captured and we were able to share it on the channel. I did have a couple of people ask a couple questions in the live chat. If you guys have other questions for Dr. McDaniel, you can put those in the live chat in all caps, so I can capture those. But Rick Kuhn was asking, I'm going to go with the one that's having to do with the New Eden supplement. He says, is the supplement significant or sufficient if only poor quality of food is available? We're looking at, they're talking a lot in the news lately about these food crises coming up and the quality of our food right now that we have in the US and around the world. So is the supplement still effective in cases where we might be facing a food shortage or food crisis?
I faced this problem starting years ago, and I could not really comprehend how this more comprehensive nutrition provided through dietary supplements was doing so much good for people. And finally, it dawned on me that when I was growing up, nearly everybody had a garden or an orchard. And very importantly, you let the vegetable or the fruit ripen on the plant, so it gave time for the plant's genes to put these nutrient molecules into the ripening fruit or vegetable. In the modern times, with commercial agriculture, off many states in the distance usually, the fruits and vegetables are picked green so that there will be a shipping life and shelf life once it arrives at the market. Nearly everyone knows the difference in taste of vine-ripened tomatoes versus those that have been picked green, shipped hard as a rock, held in the back of the market until they're red enough to fool you, except it can't fool your taste. There's quite a difference. And I've been informed, though I can't seem to find the paper, that at Rutgers University, which is big in agricultural analysis, that the vine-ripened tomato has up to about 200 nutrient molecules made by the plant when it's plant ripened that are not present in the green picked. And this is repeated over and over in our food chain. And it's one of the reasons that the dietary supplements are so powerful, because with freeze drying, you can take fruit that they used to have to throw on the ground, rush it to the factory and freeze dry it, and these nutrient molecules are present that our genes call for in cellular synthesis to properly assemble bioactive molecules to move the biochemistry and physiology to the normal zone. And this was recognized long ago by the father of human physiology, Dr. Hans Selye, and he called this balance of the biochemistry in the body homeostasis. And these molecules are extremely powerful that are provided in the plants. And that is why it's difficult in this day and time to provide all the molecules that the genes call for. I hope that addresses.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Yeah, it really makes a lot of sense.
The harvest is a problem.
The harvest is the problem. So that's this will supplement that that lack of nutrition then. Rick also has a question. He was asking what your thoughts are if you are familiar with hydrogen oxygen therapy, HHO therapy. I'm not familiar with it.
Enough, a number of years ago, my phone rang, and on the phone was Dr. Robert Neubauer from the Miami, Florida area. He founded the International Hyperbaric Association. The members had chambers which they gave the oxygen into, and under a higher pressure, you could get more oxygen to the cells.
Okay.
And the reason he called me is that through their network, that he had multiple people tell him that the combination of more comprehensive nutrition is available in our dietary supplement formulation, combined with hyperbaric oxygen, was synergistic, and that people, for example, children with cerebral palsy, or adults that have had strokes and a number of other problems, responded more robustly by the combination of HBO and nutrition. And he wanted me to come to their annual meeting and explain why this worked. Well, I immediately accepted it. Then I began to figure out, what in the world am I going to say? And on the plane there, it began to dawn on me that I worked my way through medical school. When I got in, I didn't really have the money to be there. And so I got a job in the pathology department working with tissue culture. And I set up maybe 100 chambers, and there would be about maybe 20 that the controls and the others looked healthy enough to thing. And we had the temperature just right. We had the gas mixture just right. But through the years, it wasn't necessary to make so many things. Fact is, in this day and time, you can, in your office, order a tube with tissue culture cells in it, and take a sample from a lesion such as the cervix, if you're looking for a human papillovirus, and put the swab in the tube, put the lid tied on, put it in the mail, and in about a week or two, they can tell you what kind of human papillovirus you got. What happened over the years that they no longer needed to make 100 cultures, and it could even do it in the mail. And what they did is they improved the composition of the media nutrients for the cells. And so that's what we were doing for the patients, that the cells require oxygen and a vast number of nutrient molecules to be able to combine them in cellular synthesis. And again, in cellular synthesis, this is under gene control. The cell has the organelles in each cell to take amino acids, fatty acids, carbohydrate units called saccharides or sugars, vitamins and minerals and elements, to hook them together again with these very special molecules that are present in plants to make bioactive molecules that conduct the biochemistry of life. And so all we were doing is getting synergism. Synergism meaning 2 + 2 is more than 4.
Okay.
We got an amplification of the benefits by optimizing oxygen and nutrient supply for cellular synthesis. I hope that's responsive to that question.
I think that's a wonderful response. So that is that perfect environment for that ATP that you were talking about earlier, for the cloud computing of our cells to work properly. And so then that way the people that needed the oxygen, because the nutrition was causing the medium, their body, to be in a better environment, then the oxygen was able to be received better. Is that kind of?
Well,
layman's way of saying.
listening to that presentation, that PowerPoint presentation, sounded like an awful lot of words. And I hope I didn't fail. I wished it was more succinct to get across without using a mostly Latin and Greek terms of science and medicine, to relate this to ancient knowledge and things that people accept, that this is old as 5,000 and 2,000 years ago, that human beings have been recognizing the unique power of nutrition that is provided in nature to support what our genes require for optimal health.
Yeah. I know you were saying that we wanted to mention for sure when people, when they go to the website, you can use my link that's in the description. When you're placing an order, there is a place to make a comment, and they get those comments to Dr. McDaniel. And if you have a specific health concern, he has reports from the Institute that may apply, or have information that may apply to your health concern directly. And he may have some more other information for you as well. So we wanted to make sure that we brought that up for people that were looking for some solutions. Do you want to add anything on that, Dr. McDaniel?
We avoid using disease terms, but if you will tell us
Yes.
what your problem is, we may have pilot studies or even controlled studies that have been published, that we will provide that with your canister of more comprehensive nutrition, so that you can have some confidence. We have a biocomputer between our ears. It's called the brain, and its function is cognition and thinking and knowing. And the function of the mind has an influence on all the function of the body. And so it's very important for you to know that more comprehensive nutrition can supply what your body needs to get to the normal homeostatic zone of balance in the various systems of your body. And there are systems of therapy now that are being developed that this is utilized in addition to pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals, the dietary supplements. It's very important for the triggering of you to realize that you have the capacity within your body, particularly influenced by what you think and believe, to optimize your health.
And when you talk about that homeostasis that we're trying to reach, that's the goal of this proper nutrition. And that's why it's important to take the New Eden product. Like, we take it 3 times a day. You can take it anywhere 2 times to 3 times a day, I think is the recommended, because you're wanting to have a consistent amount to balance in your body, or have a consistent support delivered to your body. Is that right?
Yes, and I might add, if you contact me, I will send you by email a newsletter that I've written about worldwide research about the contribution that the bacteria in your large bowel contribute to health. I won't go into a great description about this, but pardon me. About pardon me. The healthy bacteria that's in your large bowel is a contributor to the health. And if you will mix the New Eden in yogurt, you will maximize the benefits. And that's what this paper is about. And it's an ancient story starting back to the early 1800s at Pasteur Institute. Doctor that was head of the Pasteur Institute wrote a paper on longevity and health in people, and he pointed out that he recognized then that people that took yogurt and kefir, which is
Like,
fermented milk product,
mhm.
had better health and lived longer than people that didn't. And that's what this, I will send you a copy of this.
Yeah, the fermentation of that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
My mom is in the chat and she's asking, I guess just to your point that you just brought up, she said, does it work for really old people?
Well, I sure hope so, because I'm 86 years old, and it certainly seems to help me. And
Yeah.
right now we're doing research on telomeres. They're caps on your chromosomes, and there are excellent papers published that people that live to be 100 or older have long telomeres. In families that people tend to die between, say, 55 to 65 or 70, they have short telomeres on the caps of their chromosomes. And what we are finding out, for example, I'm at 86, I have telomeres are that of about a 45 to 55-year-old. My brother that was he's 80 years old. He was in special forces for about a decade, jumping out of airplanes and swimming the English Channel
Yeah.
is evidence of physical activity. He's 80 years old, and his telomeres are about 35 to 45 years old. I have a 57-year-old son that runs triathlons and Ironman competitions several times a year. 57 years old and excellent physical condition. His telomeres are that of 15 to 25-year-old.
Right.
So this more comprehensive nutrition is good for older people too.
Yeah.
And what you want is quality of life, not just years. And we published a paper in the year 2000 with a researcher in San Antonio, Dr. Gilbert Cates, that has over 30 years experience in clinical studies. And we had 670 people that reversed the objective biomarkers associated with the disabilities of aging. This was done by Tufts Medical School and Johns Hopkins Medical School for the U.S. Public Health Department, because they had discovered in the Social Security tables that the amortization predictions they had were going to pot because people were living longer and getting benefits from Social Security. And those long word meant basically, what do we mean by grandpa and grandma or auntie or uncle are getting feeble? And they developed objective, measurable points called biomarkers that they did every 10 years since World War II, when they brought in about 2,000 people and tested them for 2 days. And they found out, and in our paper, we had 670 people that reversed these biomarkers of aging to a younger level, and their quality of life increased. And they went back to getting their driver's license. They could handle traffic. They went back to travel. They had given up, couldn't handle schedules and such. They went back to bowling, tennis, golf. And shortly after this, a dentist in Kansas called me excited on the telephone. He had been taking this more comprehensive nutrition that's available in New Eden for about 2 years, and he was 71 years old, and his telomeres were that of a 35, 45-year-old. That's what led us to doing these, and we're slowly trying to do more. They tell me we're going to have to do about 20 to confirm this at the medical school that I work with in Miami. So yes, answer to your question, this is good stuff for
Any age, for sure. I don't know if we can share. You sent a letter recently. It was an overview for New Eden. It was a 85-bed independent hospital. And they kind of did an overview of, I'm not sure how long this study was, but it says the highest level of evidence-based science has been the awakening of early and mid-advanced Alzheimer's disease with a 69% benefit using New Eden dietary supplement based on aloe-acemannan, 46% improved memory and cognition, and 23% stabilized. Caregivers reported 100% benefit in all patients that had elevated quality of life. Okay, so that was the one, the previous report. But then you got, it says that we got a bonus in mechanism of action was present. CD14 stem cells increased by flow. Oh gosh, I don't know what this means. Cytometer near 400%. I'm not sure what that means. But then you talk about how the serum stem cells migrating to the brain, and how it benefits. You also talked about in this that some of the benefits, some of the patients that had anything from Parkinson's, MS, ALS, cerebral palsy, and even strokes were showing benefits along with major CNS and key organ problems that were showing improvement. They've even taken heart, liver, kidney, and lung transplant people off the list due to an elevation of function. So I'm sorry. Then we went on to talk about a common patient type is type 2 diabetes. And then it says the benefits documented at the Air Force Retired Clinic. I don't know if I don't want to say anything that I'm not supposed to share. So, but it was a combination of standard treatment protocols and more comprehensive nutrition, as in New Eden. And he calls it a combination revolution in cancer therapy. So all of these things are pretty exciting, where you're seeing actual.
Well, I think I can help you with what you were telling me. This little hospital, I was telling a key person there that by offering this to their patients, they could achieve benefits and restoration of health that no medical center dedicated to pharmaceuticals and common medical practices could touch by supporting the engineering and design of life that is coded in the center of each cell in your body in DNA. That's what we're supporting, the cellular synthesis of molecules. And the responses that you were giving there is that we found out that we were generating millions of adult stem cells by adding the active ingredient of the aloe plant to the diet. That's one of the reasons older people get benefits. Nearly everyone has had an older person in their family or in their circle. They'll say, have you seen old Joe or Ann in the last few months? They've aged more in the last 5 or 10 years than they had in the previous 20. And it's because their stem cells from their own bone marrow were not being released to replace aged and damaged and poorly functioning cells. And that's why we have taken multiple patients off of the waiting list for a new heart, a new liver, new kidneys, and even cystic fibrosis teenagers that needed lung transplants. These stem cells migrate in, and we showed that in the Alzheimer's study down in Miami by flow cytometry that the CD14 monocytes, which have the potential for being stem cells, were increased nearly 400%. And in addition, were this capacity to replace damaged and degenerated cells, we took blood serum at entry and at the end of the study and froze it. And when the assay became available for brain-derived neural growth factor, even though the serum from the spinal fluid was deleted with the entire blood volume, there was an increase in this factor, which is circumstantial evidence that not only were the stem cell generation greatly increased, but that they were differentiating in the Alzheimer's patients, or those that had lost normal memory and cognition, and it improves that these stem cells migrated in, crossed the blood-brain barrier, and differentiated, as this factor indicated, to become new brain cells. And that is an incredible capacity that was programmed into the human body DNA by the organizing and designing power in the universe that is absolutely unquestionable and has been one of the biggest questions of mystery to mankind since they've been able to think.
Absolutely. A lot of people are really interested in the telomere conversation. How does one find out how old their telomeres are? Is that something that's available to the public? Is that just in the science community?
Well, first, I had to search for a place to do the assay, and the dentist telephoned me from Kansas, informed me that at Houston, Texas, in the SpectraCell laboratory, that they do the assay. And on the web, you can find out that they looked at many different systems and that they do it on blood. And unfortunately, the test costs $200, and that's the reason with limited, we don't have research funds here. With
$200,000.
No, $200.
$200, but you need 1,000 people or something, or
Well, no, we were told that we need at least 20,
20.
and we're just slowly increasing that. We're only doing it on people that are over 50, and they've been taking New Eden for at least a year.
Okay.
And we're seeing these benefits like I gave you and myself and my brother
Yeah.
and my oldest son.
Would they need to have had their telomeres tested before they start taking New Eden and afterwards, or just after taking New Eden for a year to be a part of the
I wish we had the research funds and had interested people if they were over 50 and we had the funds. It would cost $200 to do the baseline. And then a year from now, after taking New Eden about three or at least 3 times a day, 3 scoops, we would repeat it because the laboratory says it takes about a year to be able to detect a major benefit. But that would cost $400. And of course, if the people have been taking the New Eden for a year and over 50, and we know of them, we are paying the $200, but we're having to do it slowly because I had the 501c3 not-for-profit IRS status that allowed us to take contributions and people write it off on their taxes. I had that, it's a long story, taken away from me because this is disruptive technology.
right.
It challenges conventional science and medicine.
The medical industrial complex.
Right. And so we are slowly trying to
I
find.
wonder if we couldn't get people, like people in the chat right now watching are like, heck, I would want to do that and pay for it myself, and just to be part of the the study.
Maybe you can.
Maybe we can recruit enough people to do this together. Yeah.
But as I was saying, the assay cost $200 each time.
Mm-hmm.
It's in this day and time with inflation and price of gas and everything else seeming to go in the pot, you are limited with an esoteric type thing like this. But we think we have excellent evidence growing that by adding this to your diet, you're going to improve your quality of life as you age. and who knows, it would take an awful lot of money to be able to determine if you would live longer. There is a laboratory in Arkansas that I've made presentations to. It's the Anti-Aging Animal Laboratory of the federal government. And they were interested in this, but they surprised me that they said, if you'll provide the money, we will do all the animal research to see if this really has a basic science basis. Well, we're seeing evidence in human beings that the more comprehensive nutrition built around the active ingredient from the aloe, which is acetylated mannose shortened to ace-pannin, really provides incredible benefits because the genes in the body are kind of in pairs, in functional pairs. It's kind of like thermostat on the wall or climate control in your car, which is set for comfort. If what I mean is, if it gets too hot, the air conditioning goes on. If it gets too cold, the heater comes on. Well, in the body, nutrient molecules are needed to turn on or activate or produce a hormone or molecule, and also nutrients are needed to down-regulate it. And there's a normal zone instead of a comfort zone that the genes are set at, that if you have optimal nutrition, that's what your genes try to move your biochemistry and physiology to. I hope I'm not.
No, I remember this. I remember this talk because there was that my daughter had the heart transplant, and so then her body was we were having her take the rejection meds, and you were talking about a situation where almost like an allergic reaction, or the body was having and I can't remember what, maybe is that what MS is like, where the body is, or autoimmune, where autoimmune, basically our body is attacking itself, and that with proper nutrition, they were seeing really great results because it was turning that, not, sometimes it's turning the heater up and sometimes it's turning the heater down, because it's about having that homeostasis, and the good nutrition provides that environment for homeostasis. So,
well, I think I could help you in this, that genetically, there has never been a person born, living today, or probably will be born, that have exactly the same immune signature on their cells. So when you have an organ transplant from another human being, it is normal physiology for your body's immunity to say, hey, that's foreign, we got to attack it. And that's the reason you give immune suppression drugs, which introduces a state in a person that's probably as bad as, say, diabetes 2. It's not a normal situation, and you're susceptible to all types of infections because you've suppressed the body's host defenses, and you feel lousy. But it beats being dead.
yeah,
it's
trading one bad situation for another, for sure.
Yeah. And we have taken people off the transplant list by the generation of these adult stem cells that have migrated, for example, in the heart. By echocardiography, you can follow, without intervention internally, by ultrasound, you can follow the strength of the contraction of the heart by echocardiography. And people that were qualified to have a heart transplant and were waiting for one, that they get on this more comprehensive nutrition that generates millions of adult stem cells, their left ventricular ejection fraction gets stronger and stronger and stronger until they no longer are qualified to get a heart transplant, and it gets on up into at least the lower limits of normal, and they don't have congestive failure, and they have a better quality of life with their heart that they have. This has happened in people that have multiple cardiac infarcts, and also myocarditis from viruses. This is very rewarding. In fact, as I frequently tell people, that in this research, being just a little part of it, I can't claim to have discovered anything or made anything. I'm just a messenger and servant to help people understand that the way things, nature and their genes and everything was put together by the creative, organizing, and designing power in the universe is astounding. That if you support the engineering and design of life that is coded in the DNA with nutrition, the restorations and health that are possible are incredible. And we do not claim to treat, cure, or mitigate disease. That's against the law in the United States. Only a pharmaceutical approved drug can claim to do this. All we do is support through nutrition normal function of the body as is coded in the genes that control cellular synthesis. I hope that makes sense.
It does. I'm really excited. I mean, I've seen my husband and I, both take it. We had my little boy when he's here, he's good about taking it. We send it to his dad's and he's not as consistent, but we're working on it. But we've noticed a big difference. The first thing I noticed was the difference in my skin, just because, you're, I guess, more aware of it. My neck and my chest didn't have the wrinkles, and my arm is not so crepey. I'll be 50 this year, and so I can almost be in the study. After October, I can be in the study. But yeah, it's exciting. And talking about the gut health, I'm going to start adding the yogurt, because I had forgotten. I think you had told me that before, but I know that gut health is so important. And so any way that we can maximize this and maximize our health, because we've got a big fight ahead of us. And the information that you've been sending me about the schools and the education, and now we're having this great education about our health and what we can do with nutrition. I'm just very grateful to have met you and for you to share all this knowledge with us and with my community. So I'm going to have some more conversations with my friends. We've got a Telegram group that we started for the Oklahoma City meetup that I have several friends in there. And I'm going to see how many people would want to jump on some and do a test. And I'll get the details from you on how it would have to play out for us to participate and be part of this. But I think we could surely find 50 people that would be interested in doing this.
Well, that would be a worthwhile project, but it would be expensive, and I'm sorry.
But it would be, like you said, it's less expensive because you're taking care of your own health. So your overall medical benefit, expenses are going to be down because you're supporting your health with good nutrition. And so if you look at it that way, I mean, spending $200, I could just not eat out for a whole month, and be able to contribute to real science and help people. I mean, that would be just amazing to me. So
that would be a worthwhile project to know the answer to it.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're interested. I have a series of PowerPoint presentations. I fear maybe they're too long and too technical, but maybe people would be interested in it. I do have a video disc, and I've had people come up and say, I've listened to this 20 times and I begin to understand it. It scares me.
Sometimes it does. I have had to reread a couple of your emails to me, and the video you gave me, the CD video discs, and I'm like, okay, I have to. It's kind of, so we have another friend of ours, Uncle Cliff. We call him Uncle Cliff, but Cliff High, brilliant man as yourself, and I have to watch his videos 2 and 3 times sometimes too. So that's okay. If you'll stay committed to help us educate people, I'll stay committed to be your partner in that. So I'm grateful to have you on here. So we'll have you on again. Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity to share this and be your people's messenger and servant, because that's about all I can claim to be. I don't even claim to be an expert, and I think this pandemic has given people a new version of experts that have been politicized rather than search for truth.
I have to agree with you. Once again, another more drops of wisdom. Well, you guys can definitely find out. There's a link in the description below where you can find more information about New Eden. There's another short video on the New Eden website where you can get more information. And remember, when you're placing your order, if you have health issues or concerns and want some specific information from Dr. McDaniel, you can put that in the comments section, and they have great resources to share with you all. So,
well, on that website, I have this book that's about the first 10 years of our research that has continued for 56 years. And for the information junkie that really is interested in this, you can find it on www.wellnessquest.org. And I can't remember, it's either $10 or $20.
I think it's only 10. If you use my link, you can go to the store with my link, and it's on the store where you have all the Wellness Quest products, and New Eden's on there, and then the book is on there, and some other we're going to have to learn about some of the other products as well, but the New Eden I know is the base nutritional support, so we're focusing on that. But thank you so much, Dr. McDaniel. I appreciate you spending time with us this evening, and we will see you again next week.
Very good.
All right, take care.
Thanks to everyone.
All right.